Hi friends, Sam here with Happily Hooked. So today I'm going to be doing a little bit different of a video with you guys. I'm going to be talking to you about how to write a crochet pattern. So not necessarily for any other reason than I know a lot of us like to make things and then we want to remake them again, and maybe we don't have a blog or we don't have an Etsy page or a Ravelry where we would sell those patterns, but we just want to be able to make the same thing a couple times, or we want to share it with our friends, or we do want to publish it on a blog or something like that. So this is just a couple of my tips and tricks that I use when I started writing patterns. I'm published in a lot of different places. I have my own website. I've worked with Happily Hooked and done patterns. You guys have seen my my Sam cardigan and the little ghost that I made. That's all for here. But yeah, so I'm gonna sit down, get comfy, and go over a couple of my tips and tricks when it comes to making crochet patterns. Hi friends, when you look in the description below this video, there's going to be a link there that contains free patterns. Make sure you click that, check it out, and I'm so excited to see how you make them. Bye guys. Alright, so like I said, today we're talking about writing crochet patterns for publication. So the first step with this is probably going to be the most simple and the most common sense of how to start writing a pattern, but my biggest step with this is just write it down. Write down what you're doing. So if you start your chain with 50, write down chain 50 with a 5mm crochet hook using this yarn. And you want to write like as specific as you possibly can. So if you're using Red Heart Super Saver, write down chain 50 with my 5mm crochet hook using Red Heart Super Saver in tea leaf. Like write down all of it so you know what you're doing, and if you put the project down and you can't remember what hook you're using or you can't remember what yarn you were using, you have it right there for you. And then keep writing every single step, even if you don't think it's something like at the end, you know, if you're doing double crochets, you'll chain 2 or you'll chain 3. Write that down. No matter what, just write it down and keep writing it down because you want to make sure you have every single detail possible so you can do it again. Tip number 2, take pictures while you're crocheting. I know this sounds really silly, but pretty much all of us have a cell phone with a camera on it. At least most of us do, I would think now. But if you take pictures while you're crocheting, it'll remind you what you did. So if you have like a weird stitch that you were working on, or you changed yarns, or you changed hook sizes, because I've made projects using like a bigger hook to start my chain and then a smaller hook to do the rest of the project. Just take pictures as you go, and that's a great reference point if you want somebody else to be able to make this pattern later on. Now preferably you want to do this in like bright light and it's nice and clear and everything looks good, but I mean if you're crocheting on your couch and it's dim and you still just need a picture, just grab your camera phone, take a picture of it, it'll be okay. And then later on when you remake it, if you do want to make this for publication, you'll know where to take pictures at when you're doing it in a bright light with nice background and everything like that. Number 3 is going to be write down the details of the stitches that you use. So if you're making something with bobble stitches, write down how many times you yarn over in that bobble stitch. There's like 500 different types of bobble stitches. So you want to make sure that you're writing what you did. So it could be as small as a bean stitch and just have a couple yarn overs, or it could be a massive bobble stitch and have like 12. Just write down the details for those stitches. And I know I keep saying write down all the details, so this is technically a part of part 1, but make sure those stitches have their own definitions, because your definition might be different than somebody else's definition. So make sure you write down what you did, so that way when you give it to somebody else or you go to do it again, you remember what type of stitch you did. Number 4, make it again. So after you make it the first time, go make something else. Make like a scrunchie or a washcloth or something different than what you were making, and then go back and remake whatever it is following those instructions. Don't think about it, just follow what's written on the paper. And then when you go back through it and you're looking at that paper and you're like, this doesn't make sense or this doesn't look right, you'll know where to notate a different change or word it better or something like that. It it helps if you clear your mind and make something different, like a washcloth or a scrunchie or something small, and then go back to what you were working on and make it again. And that'll help you remember the process of how to write your patterns, and that way you won't miss anything if you are gonna hand this off to somebody else. And number 5, have somebody else look at it. Even if you don't plan on publishing this on a blog or publishing this anywhere and you just want to use it for like you and your friends or for market prep or something like that, have somebody else look at it, because they might be able to help you clarify. So if you're making the same thing 2 years down the road, they might be able to help word it better. You don't have to pay anybody for it. You can have testers, and testers just get to use the pattern too. But you don't have to pay anybody for it. So it doesn't ever hurt to just give it to somebody, say, hey, I wrote this pattern. Would you mind taking a look at it and seeing if it makes sense? I would really appreciate it. And then you can also use this pattern too later on. I love testers. They are some of my favorite human beings in the whole world. They have way more patience than I do when it comes to writing patterns. Later on down the road, you can get tech editors and you pay those people and they'll make sure everything matches and everything works. But it's really fun, and I love writing patterns. It's like a big challenge for me because I'm not a math person. I don't like math. I don't like numbers, but I love writing patterns for other people to make those projects. So I highly recommend, even if you never do it again, just try it once, write down one pattern, one thing that you did. And then remember that if you're taking somebody else's pattern and you're just slightly tweaking it, it's not your pattern. It's still not your pattern, it's their pattern. Obviously, there's only so many ways that you can make a beanie. There's only so many ways that you can make a top-down cardigan. But make sure that if the starting chain for the cardigan says 76 and you do 77, but everything else is the same, it's not your pattern. It's their pattern still. Now, if their starting chain was 76 and you did 104 and changed everything else on it, then it's your pattern. But make sure you're not copying anybody else's work or very slightly changing it and then claiming it as your own, because that's not how it works. But yeah, so those are my tips. If you have any other questions, or if you have any recommendations, if you're a pattern writer and have any recommendations, just leave those in the comments below. I'd love to be able to share those with everybody. I love it. I have a blast with it. Some people are not crochet pattern writers, and that is totally okay. You just use other people's patterns and make the things, and I will just swoon over them anyway. But if you did want to, or you wanted to try it out, I recommend it. I have a lot of fun with it. It is a challenge. It is a little bit frustrating sometimes, but it's so worth it when you can go back 3, 4, 5 years later down the road and make the same thing and it look just as pretty or even prettier because your crochet skills have gotten better. So like I said, if you have any questions, leave those in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.